everybody. How are you guys? It's good to see you. Well, again, my name's Connor. I'm the youth pastor here. I'll just get this out the gate right now. I'm scared, okay? This is not what Brandon said this was going to be. No, I'm just joking. I'm really glad to be here with you guys this morning, be able to have this opportunity to not be around some high schoolers today and them heckle me all morning. If there's any high schoolers in here, don't say anything, okay, please. Again, I'm excited to have this opportunity to be able to share with you, to speak with you guys this morning. Just a quick little bit about me. I've been here for going on 5 years at New Hope. I'm blessed to be able to serve New Hope's youth, the students that go here to this church. Ultimately, I'm blessed to be able to have the opportunity to be able to live out my passions and spend time with kids and walk alongside them and help them grow in their relationships with Jesus, ultimately because my life was changed at church. My life was changed at youth group because of my youth pastor and the impact that he had on my life. And so it's a blessing to be able to do that here. My wife and I, we moved here to Bend from the Valley probably about 5 years ago. Yeah, everything's 5 years for me right now. So about 5 years, and it's been kind of a crazy ride. I mean, we moved here in the middle of COVID. That was a crazy situation, time for all of us. And it's even more crazy to think about how my wife and I moved here. It wasn't in the traditional sense. It wasn't like we got an apartment or we're like, yeah, we're going to get a house. It's really going to live normal. But the reason why is because we were two broke college students trying to figure out how can we pay as little rent as possible so I could have money. And I was like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to be able to live, move, do the things that we want to do in life? And I was driving by a school bus. Anybody ever been inside a school bus? Yeah, probably. Okay. They're not that spacious, but I had the thought, maybe I could live in that. Maybe I could sleep in that bus. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is going to happen. I started looking up some ideas. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can try to convince my soon-to-be wife. I'm like, maybe I can convince the love of my life to live in a metal tin can. Like, maybe this is, and that's the dream. That was her dream, was to live in a school bus and marry a handsome redhead just as me. That was her dream. I know it. Don't ask her. She'll tell you otherwise. But so I was like, okay, how do we get here? We got to make this happen. And so I thought this would be funny, but I don't know if it actually helped my chances of getting the school bus. I put on a collared shirt, and I usually wear t-shirts, so collared shirts. I was like, oh, this is too fitting, and I don't know if I like it. I put on a tie very loosely and not good, and I put together a slideshow. So I put in some homework, put in some time, and I went to her house, and I sat in front of her. I was like, okay, have an open mind. Do not be closed-minded. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just have an open mind, okay? I think I figured out our problem. And she's like, okay, it's fine. And I started playing the slideshow. I'm like, see, this is a school bus. We could live in this. And she looked at me very crazy. She was like, you're insane. We're not going to live in this. But at the end of the slideshow, and I was, in my basketball shorts and tie and shirt that I was wearing. I forgot to mention the basketball shorts, of course. She said, okay, I'm not saying no. And then ultimately we built a really cool bus and we moved here and have had such an amazing experience, and we obviously love living in Bend. It's just been super cool to see how God has worked in our lives, and I'm excited for how he continues to do so. Last week, Pastor Brandon introed us into our summer series, 3 Kings, and this series is going to be something that we go throughout the rest of summer. And we're going to be looking at the lives of Saul, David, and Solomon. And more so is that this series, and us looking at their lives, and this is what Brandon said last week, it's going to be a mirror. It's going to be a mirror, and it's going to be a reflection of we're going to be able to see our lives in the lives of these 3 kings. Ultimately, because we're going to look at the things that they did really good, and we're going to look at the things that they did poorly. And we're going to see, okay, how can we continue to grow into the people, the person that God is calling me to be? How can I continue to grow in my relationship with him and a better follower of Christ? And so again, last week, Brandon went over this, and this is what he talked about and interested in, is that whenever we care more about what the world has to offer, we ultimately could miss what God has for us. And his sermon really did hit me pretty deep because I care so much about so many worldly things, and I care so much about all the things that I don't have. That I'm like, gosh, I really want this, I really want this thing. And then I get caught in this comparison trap of where my life is. But ultimately, at least in my own experience, that when I get caught in those situations, get caught in that trap of wanting what the world has, there's been moments where I'm missing what God is trying to do in my life. And so we're going to continue in our series this morning. We're going to be looking at, again, the life of Saul. And the question that I want to start out with and ask you guys this morning is to kind of think about where you're at, think about your relationship with God, where you're at in your life. And the question I want to ask is, am I operating from confidence in God or fear of losing control? Am I operating in a space where I'm fully confident in my relationship with God and how God is working in my life and who God is and who I know him to be? Or am I operating, am I afraid of losing control? I think it's pretty easy for us to say that when things are easy, when there's no stress, when there's no difficulties that we're facing in life, I think it's pretty easy to be fully confident in God, like God's great. Like God's awesome, God's working, God is there. I fully trust him, I'm fully confident in what he's doing. But then, again, from my life, my own experience, I don't know about you guys, but whenever the things that I think I have control over, whenever that starts to kind of be tested, or whenever I'm in a situation where I am overwhelmed, I'm stressed out, or things are just a little bit uncertain, and I'm afraid of losing the control that I have, then I start to doubt. Then I start to have troubles, and I start to get into a place where I'm not as confident as I said I was in God. And so more specifically, we're going to look at this idea, and we're going to be looking at Saul's life. If you know anything about Saul, King Saul was not necessarily a man after God's own heart. He was a man after the people's heart. And ultimately, through his story, through his reign as king, we kind of see that Saul is an insecure man. And so for us this morning, we're going to really look at how insecurity destroys influence. That how insecurity can destroy the influence that we have in our life. I don't know if you guys know this, each and every one of us have influence. All of us, on some level, have influence on somebody else's life. Whether it's with the people we work with, whether it's with our family, our spouse, friends, whoever it is. There is somebody in your life that you are influential to. Right? Like we have influence in the things that we do, the way that we act, the things that we say, the way that we treat other people, the way that we conduct ourselves influences somebody else. I said that to some middle schoolers a few months back. They all looked at me like I was crazy. They looked at me, I said, I'm like, you guys, like people look up to you. And they immediately shook their head like, you're nuts, man. Like there's no way that I have influence. And I'm like, no, dude, if you're an 8th grader, there's a 6th grader that's looking up to you. So if you say something you shouldn't say, that 6th grader is gonna see that and go, I guess I can say that to whoever I want. This idea that influence, that I have influence, it hit me pretty recently, which maybe it was a little bit too late in the game because I am a youth pastor. And I, influence the youth. But I have a little brother. He's 6 years old. He calls me Bubba Connor. And I got 4 other siblings. I can't forget about them. But I will say he is my favorite, okay? He's my favorite. I won't even deny it. They know it. Everybody knows it. Like, that's my guy. It's my little guy. And my parents pulled me aside one day, and they were like, hey, you really got to watch what you say around this kid. I'm like, I'm not even saying anything bad. They're like, yeah, but if you say stupid, he picks that up. And I was like, that's a joke. There's no way. And not even within the hour, my little brother went up to my mom and was like, this is so stupid. And I was like, oh boy, maybe I should watch what I say around this kid. But that wasn't even really what impacted my understanding of influence. It's when he did this. This is really what grabbed my heart. He got up one morning, and my mom had to call me and tell me about this. He put on his hat that I got him. We have matching hats because I like to think that we're cool. We had matching hats. He put his matching hat on. He put his shirt on that was like me. He had the same pair of Vans as me, and he put it on. He was like all excited to go to school. He was like, I look like Bubba Connor. That's me. And my mom called me, and she's like, you have some sort of mind control over this kid. And I'm like, he just wants to be like me. He's cool. He wants to be a cool guy. And so I took that. I was like, after we hung up the phone, I literally sat and thought about that, where I'm like, man, this kid really looks up to me. He wants to dress like me. He wants to be like me. He listens to the words that I say and how I conduct, how I act and treat other people. And I was like, man, my influence ultimately matters. Like the influence that I have on somebody else's life matters. If a little 6-year-old kid is looking at me and the things that I do impacts how he conducts himself, like that matters. And so again, all of us have influence, and so there's a point of like we should care about how that influence is portrayed in our life and how we influence those around us. Here's the other thing that we have. I think all of us have it, insecurity. Each and every one of us on some level are insecure about something. And that insecurity, whether it's big or small, is destructive in parts of our lives. And this is coming from a guy that, I don't know if you guys can tell, I got red hair. So my entire life I've heard every sort of redhead joke you can think of, okay? It's all been said to me. And one of the very first moments where I really experienced like insecurity, you guys can't use this against me, okay? All right? I bought some red Vans one day, okay? I was really excited about these shoes. Super excited, and I went to school, and I was like, I'm gonna be the coolest kid at Ogden Middle School, okay? That's me. I'm gonna be the coolest kid ever. And one of my close friends, probably shouldn't have been a close friend at the time, just because of the comment he made to me. He came up to me, he sat by me in the bus. He's like, hey man, just I have to break it to you. You got red hair. And I was like, yeah? He's like, yeah, but you can't wear anything red, man. It doesn't look good. So you got to take those shoes off. And I was like, what are you talking about? I can't wear red shoes. And he's like, yeah, dude, redheads don't wear red. And at the moment, I took everything he said for the hard truth. But now I'm questioning, like, where's the stats on that? Like, what do you mean you redheads can't wear red? That's crazy. But I don't wear red today. Like, I look at red and I go, ew, get that away from me. That was before I had a red beard. I was like, it was a little brown on top or something. But no, I felt that insecurity. And so, like all jokes aside, each and every one of us have insecurity. And that insecurity can be destructive to our influence. Our insecurity can be destructive to our relationships with our family, with our spouses, the way that we communicate, ultimately, again, the way that we feel about ourselves, self-confidence, and our relationships with God. When you take control out of fear, you sabotage God's influence in your life. Again, insecurity can make us do some crazy things. It can make us, again, be filled with so much fear, and it can make us take control. And so the thing that I want us to understand just right off the bat this morning is that when you take control out of fear, you sabotage God's influence in your life. And we're going to see Saul do just that. We're going to see him make a decision ultimately that kind of dictates the rest of his life. And that changes the influence that he has on people, and that changes the influence that God has in his life. So where do our insecurities come from? I think it comes from fear. I think insecurity and fear are closely related. I think that when we're afraid of something, or that when we're filled with fear, or when a moment happens that we are filled with this insecurity, this lack of confidence in whatever it is. But here's the truth, is that there are so many moments in life where we are faced with fear, where we are sometimes consumed by it, or where things are just a little bit scary. So the first thing I want us to pull from this passage this morning is this, is that for us to don't be afraid when life gets overwhelming. There are going to be moments when life is overwhelming, and at times it's very stressful, and it's honestly scary. I mean, I'd imagine that like we all have probably had some pretty big moments in our life where it's like, God, I have no idea what to do. I am afraid. I am scared. This is overwhelming. This is stressful. And we are left with this moment of just like confusion. Like I'm so afraid and it's overwhelming. And so the thing I want us to understand this morning is to not be afraid when life gets overwhelming. We're going to read and we're going to start off this morning in 1 Samuel 13, starting in verse 3. And what we're going to see is ultimately Jonathan, Saul's son, he's going to attack the Philistines. They're going to win a battle, and then ultimately they are going to be in a moment where the Philistines respond and they are afraid. So verse 3, Jonathan attacked the Philistine outpost in Geba, and the Philistines heard about it. Then Saul had the trumpet blown throughout the land and said, "Let the Hebrews hear." So all Israel heard the news. Saul has attacked the Philistine outpost. And now Israel has become obnoxious to the Philistines, and the people were summoned to join Saul at Gilgal. Other versions would say the Israelites were a stench to the Philistines. It's a pretty good word, I think, to just pick on somebody that you're annoyed by. Like, you're a stench to me. I'm annoyed. You're a stench. Verse 5, the Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash, east of Beth-aven. When the Israelites saw that their situation was critical and that their army was hard-pressed, they hid in caves and thickets among the rocks and in pits and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan into the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. So again, Jonathan, he attacks the Philistines' outpost, and he wins. It's a good thing. Okay, he's doing his job. Like he is supposed to go out, and he's supposed to ultimately do this. And Saul makes it so known to all of Israel by blowing the trumpets. And now, after doing that, the Philistines are annoyed. Like, again, they're a stench. Like, they're annoyed, and they're going to respond. And if you were paying attention to the description, it's like they've got an army. They've got some guys. They've got soldiers as numerous as the sand on a seashore. Anybody been to the beach? Yeah, that's a lot of sand. It's a lot of guys. I think, again, that number is probably a little bit inflated. But it just paints the picture that the Philistines are ready to take care of their annoyance. Here's the truth, is Israel was unprepared for how their enemies were going to respond. And you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of us, when faced with something that's overwhelming or faced with a moment where we just don't know what to do, that we are unprepared for it? That we are unprepared, and because we're unprepared, we're stressed, and we're afraid, and we don't know what to do. I said this last service, and I still think it's funny because I forgot all about how I used to do this to my mom. I would leave projects. I was not the best student in school. I didn't really care. But the first, the night before like a major project's due, I'm like going to my mom, like, please, like, help me. Like, I need your help. And she's irritated with me. She's like, you're a stench to me, Connor. And I'm like, what? Why? But she would help me do my project, and I remember being like, I'm so afraid. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna fail this project. I really didn't care, but for some reason I was stressed. But ultimately, I was so unprepared, and I wasn't ready for what was to come. My teacher was gonna be upset and give me a bad grade, and then I was gonna get, my Nintendo Wii taken away, which I RIP to those things. But I was unprepared. And so a lot of us are faced with moments where we are unprepared, and we are left in this moment where we are afraid, where we are filled with so much pressure, and we're overwhelmed and we're scared. And I think it's easy in those moments to ultimately, I think it really shows how much confidence we have in God. I think when we are in a moment where maybe we're faced with something that's a tragedy happening in our family, or maybe a health scare, or something pretty overwhelming that's like just out of your hands. You're like, I don't know what to do. And I think right there in that moment, that ultimately demonstrates and shows a little bit behind the curtain how much confidence you have in God and what he can do and how he is working in that situation. And it shows the trust that we have in who he is. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if anybody actually grows as human beings or as followers of Christ in the easy moments. Like when things are as exactly how we want them to be, when things are just comfortable and we're cruising, like I don't know if I grow. I don't know if I actually continue to grow into that follower, that man of God that I want to be, that God wants me to be. Again, trusting God when we are the most afraid is probably when we grow. Like when we are faced with challenges, when we are faced with hardship, when we are faced with the unknown, and when we turn to God and trust him and just, again, give him all that we have and say, Lord, like you are in control. And God, I am going to follow you. I am going to ultimately serve you, and I want to trust your plan. Like right then in that moment, giving up all of your control, giving up that moment, and like kind of just being okay with the situation at hand and trusting that God is working. I think that's what helps us grow and challenges us. I experienced a little bit of this. I lived in Montana one time. I won't live there again, probably. It's a beautiful, beautiful state, God's country. It's God's country, is what they told me. And everybody would say big sky country, and I don't understand it. I go outside, and I'm like, the sky's the same. Like, I don't know. I don't see that. But I lived there, and when I say I lived out in the middle of nowhere, I'm not lying to you. Somebody could have killed me, nobody would have found me. That is where I lived. I lived in a small town. You go through this little small town, you drive another 15 miles to a smaller town, drive another 10 miles to this little, it was like a store and a mailroom mixed into one. And then you go another 15 miles outside of that, take a left on a dirt road, and you go down that road for about 5 miles into this canyon. And I lived there for like 9 months. It took my dad and I 16 hours to get there, and I was 19. I was a little nervous. I'm like, gosh, I'm making a big life move, kind of my big first like decision as an adult. Like, God, like, Dad, I'm moving to Montana. Like, that's where I need to be. And then as as I was driving these towns, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be here. Like, this place looks scary. Like, this is intimidating, because we showed up in the middle of the night. This is my dad. This is what he did. He grabbed my suitcase. Once we arrived, it was a 16-hour drive. Grabbed my suitcase, grabbed my pillow, gave me a hug, and said, peace. Turned around and drove another 16 hours home. And I sat there with people I've never met in a situation where I'm like, I'm very terrified right now, and I kind of want to go cry, and I don't want anybody to see. I want to cry. My dad just goes, peace. I'm like, Dad, what do you mean you're leaving? And he's like, yeah, I don't know, I just want to go home. I'm like, you're going to leave me here? He's like, it's time to grow up, I guess. And I was like, what? Like, you're crazy, man. And I'll be honest with you, I did not like living there at first. Don't ask my wife. She would tell you that I hated the entire time, which is because I'd call her every day and be like, get me out of here. I need to go home. But the moment when I was afraid, and the moment where I was so scared and overwhelmed, again, by my own decision, because I chose to live there. But the moment when I'm like, okay, Lord, this is overwhelming. This is a new place. I don't like where I'm at. God, I don't know what to do. In that moment, I ultimately grew so much, because I got to meet some amazing people. I got to ultimately pour more into my relationship with God, and I got to kind of weed out this overwhelming fear and insecurity that I was dealing with at the time, and I got to experience God in a brand new way. And I think, again, the thing I want us to understand is God is with us even in the most overwhelming, stressful, and scary moments. Don't be afraid when life gets overwhelming. So how should we respond when the pressure seems to be too much? When things become too much and you're just like, again, I don't want to joke so much, but the amount of times I heard my mom say, I'm done. Throw her hands in the air, and she's like, I'm done. The pressure was too much, because I was probably annoying her too much. And I wish I would have had this tagline to tell her. Don't let the pressure give you permission, Mom. Don't let the pressure give you permission. Don't let the pressure give you permission to just say, okay, I'm gonna just give up all trust and I'm just gonna take everything into my own hands and I'm gonna control it. How often does that happen for us? Where things are too much, the pressure's too much, it's overwhelming, and it's like, all right, it's time for me to just lean on myself and nobody else, and ultimately, I'm gonna lean on my own understanding and not God's understanding. I'm gonna take control. We're gonna see Saul let the pressure give him permission to take that same control. He's at a moment where he's afraid. His men are scared, and ultimately we see him cave into that pressure, and we see him take control when he shouldn't have. Verse 8 says this, he waited 7 days at the time set by Saul. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. Started losing control of his guys. Things were a little stressful. Samuel did not come at the exact time that was set, and so his men they started to freak out. So he said, bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings. And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. What have you done? Asked Samuel. Saul replied, when I saw that the men were scattering and that you did not come at the set time, and the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal. And I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. Notice that last part. I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. Here's the truth. Something we need to understand here is that when I first read this, I was like, well, it seems pretty reasonable for Saul to he's in a moment of crisis, like the Philistines are trying to take care of the stench, and he's afraid and he's scared, and he's like, my guys are upset, they're overwhelmed, and so I'm the king, I'm the leader, like I need to take control of the situation. That's how I first read it. And that's how, when I was first trying to wrap my mind around the text. But when I learned that Saul was given a command, he was given a command before that, hey, in this situation, you need to wait 7 days at this exact place, and you need to wait for Samuel to get there because you guys have two roles. Saul, you're the king. You're the person that's supposed to lead the people closer to God, and ultimately you're supposed to be that person that is a man after God's own heart. And Samuel, he is the priest. He is the person that is going to do these offerings and go before the Lord. But what did Saul do? He broke that command. He did not wait for Samuel to show up, and he did not do his role. He tried to play Samuel's part. And not soon after he gives the burnt offering, because he wasn't able to give the peace offering as well, Samuel showed up and was like, what are you doing? What's going on? Here's what Saul demonstrates, is that he did not demonstrate his ability to lead the way that he should have when he was losing control of his men. Saul showed a lack of courage with these excuses that he gives Samuel. He lets the pressure of everybody else around them in this stressful moment, in this stressful time. And again, like this is, the Philistines are trying to wipe them out. They're trying to take revenge. And so he lets the stress, he lets the pressure of how everybody else is acting and says, okay, well, I guess since this is how everybody else is going to act, then I have to do something. I have to ultimately cave to what people are doing around me. Saul demonstrated insecurity with his relationship with God, a lack of confidence that he had with God, because again, he had this command. He was told by God, hey, wait. And instead of saying, okay, Lord, I trust you more than anything, I'm actually going to go against what you've commanded me to do, and I'm going to take things into my own hands and control this situation. And I think the truth is that sometimes taking control is not always being the best leader. That sometimes taking control does not always fix the issue. And like we see at the beginning of this is that sometimes when we take control out of fear, we are missing the influence that God has in our life and what God is potentially trying to do. Again, he got filled with insecurity because he was losing control. And so I don't know about any of us this morning, but I don't know how we respond when we are losing control or how we respond when things are just out of our hands. But I think the challenge, the thing that to remember is, okay, how can I understand, how can I remember that actually, in all situations, I'm not in control? That God is ultimately the one that is in control. And so how do I respond to losing control? Or how do I respond to those moments when it is just so much pressure and so overwhelming and so scary? Like, what do I do? And I think it's easy. The first response is to say, okay, I'm going to control this. I'm going to take control. I'm going to be the captain of my own ship. But ultimately, again, like what I'm trying to say is, in the moments when we're in those moments and when we're experiencing so much fear and anxiety and insecurity, ultimately the moments where we grow the most is when we look to God and we say, okay, I trust you. Like, I give you everything. You're in control. I'm here, and I want to obey you. I want to ultimately trust what you have in store. So again, instead of taking control, what does God want from us? God wants your obedience, not your performance. God wants your obedience, not your performance. Coming from an insecure person myself, I don't wear red shoes, but coming from an insecure person myself, I focus so hard on my performance. I focus so hard on the things that I want to do very well at, or how the decisions that I make, the way that I control things in my life, how I act, how I am as a person. Like, I want to be in control. And all of that comes from my insecurity. And it comes from my own, sometimes even my own made up, like, this is how things have to be and this is how everybody else expects me to be. And so I'm going to make sure I go down that route. Instead, I miss the fact that God actually doesn't care about my performance. He would rather have me be obedient to what he has called me to do. He'd rather have me be obedient to what his word says. We're going to see Samuel call out Saul really, really harsh. 1 Samuel 13. You have done a foolish thing, Samuel said. You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people because you have not kept the Lord's command. Samuel really calls out Saul. You have done a foolish thing. If Pastor Brandon came into my office and was like, you have done a foolish thing, Connor, I'd be like, are you kidding? Like, what did I do? I'm really scared. He's, you didn't take out the trash. I'd be like, oh man, I'm sorry. You have done a foolish thing. That cuts deep. Saul was supposed to keep the commandment given through Samuel, which was to wait for him, ultimately so that Samuel could come and give those offerings. But Saul's rejection of God's command ultimately ended up being God's rejection of Saul's throne, rejecting Saul from the throne. And the thing we understand is that God did not care about Saul's performance. God did not care about him trying to take control or even say, okay, well, he gave at least one burnt offering. Like he tried to do one good thing. No, God did not care about Saul's performance. He wanted Saul's obedience. I think oftentimes when we're struggling with insecurity, when we are struggling with fear, when we are struggling with having this idea that we need to be more focused on our performance, again, assuming that our actions matter the most, this is when we struggle, and this is when we show that our confidence in God is not where it needs to be. Again, when we're struggling with insecurity, we care more about performance and assuming that our actions matter the most, but that's not true. I think what's most sad about Saul's situation is that after the decisions that he made, Saul had the opportunity to influence the people around him. I've had some really good leaders in my life. And the thing that I've learned from these leaders, their actions is when things are crazy, when things are like overwhelming and there's so much pressure, those leaders, they don't freak out. They don't give in to the pressure from everybody else. They don't give in to everybody else and telling them, like, this is what you have to do. You got to do this, this, and this, and this. They take a step back. Even if they're stressed out, even if they are afraid, even if they are filled with fear, they take a step back and they sit there and they ultimately stay calm and they guide and they lead by their example. And that's really hard. But Saul had the opportunity to be able to do that. And instead, he broke the commandment that God had called him to do through Samuel. And ultimately, that affected his influence on them and ultimately affected his influence to future generations through his family. And so again, the thing we need to understand is that God wants your obedience, not your performance. So how do we battle insecurity? And I just got 3 things that for me at least, this is what I try to focus on when I'm overwhelmed or when I'm insecure, is this. I try to look back at my foundation. Focus on the foundation your identity is built on. It takes a little bit of processing, that takes a little bit of work, trying to weed out these insecurities, these things that we deal with, these fears, these things that make us, that overwhelm us. But what is your identity? What is your foundation built on? Where does your identity come from? I love what I love what Jesus says in Matthew 7:24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. When I think about my foundation, when I think about where my identity comes from, it doesn't come from my performance. It doesn't come from what anybody else has to say. It doesn't come from how anybody else is acting. But ultimately, it comes from who God is and how amazing and strong and perfect he is. Like, that's where my identity should be rooted in. The second thing sounds like a more churchy language, but I think it's so true, is trust in God's strength and peace. Like, when I'm afraid and when I'm insecure and when I'm overwhelmed, like, that is the moment when I need to be trusting on God's strength and his peace rather than my own strength and the things that I can do. Because ultimately, I can't measure up. I'm going to let myself down. Anytime that I deal with insecurity or that I'm afraid, the thing that I always go back to, the verse that I relied on so much throughout high school and college, even to this day, is Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Now, if that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what will. For me, that verse, reading that, hearing those words, realizing that God is my true source of strength, that he is going to help me, that he is right there with me, and that the first 3 words, like, so do not fear. So do not fear. It's like I have nothing to worry about. God's strength and his peace is all that I need. And this last one, I get it. I love skateboarding. Brian's accident actually scares me a little bit now. I need to be a little bit more careful. But I chose 2 words, and now I'm thinking about them like, this sounds like skater language. It sounds like a different language. But if you're doing a trick, my buddies are like, just commit. Don't be a baby. Just commit. Just full commit. And I wrote that down of fully commit. Like, when we fully commit to God, when we fully commit to saying, Lord, I trust you 100%. I trust you with everything. I understand that you're in control, that you are the one that ultimately guides me, the one that I get my strength from. I want to fully commit to you. It's not a half, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It is Lord, I'm fully committing to who you are. I'm fully committing to the work that you want to do. I'm fully committing to the plan, and I'm trusting you with everything. I'm giving you my insecurities. I'm giving you my fears. I'm giving you my so-called the control that I think I have in my life. Like, I fully commit to who you are and what you want to do. And so again, maybe the question that we should ask is what do we have a hard time letting go of? Like, what are some things in our lives that we're like, hey, I just want this is mine. I want to control this. Like, I'm too insecure to let this go. I'm too afraid to let this go. I need to control this. I have one foot in. I have one foot out. Like, what is that thing in our life that we just need to fully give over to the Lord, to God? Like, what is that one thing we need to go, Lord, I want to fully commit to you? Will you guys stand with me? I'm going to invite you guys to stand before the band comes back out. Again, ultimately, like I said in the beginning, our influence matters. The influence that we have on other people's lives, it makes a difference. And especially if we're saying, hey, Lord, I want to follow you. I love you. I want to commit to you. I want to see your work done in my life. Then our influence really does matter. And we can give him our insecurities. We can give him our fears. We can give him everything that we deal with that is overwhelming and stressed out. And the thing, again, I want us to remember this morning is that when you take control out of fear, you sabotage God's influence in your life. That when you decide to take control out of fear, it affects the way that God can influence you and influence your life. Lord, thank you so much for who you are. And again, how much you love us. Lord, I pray that if there's anything in our lives that we are just afraid to let go of, if there's anything in our lives that we are just insecure about, the things that are keeping us from having influence in the people around us, Lord, I pray that you would just continue to do an amazing work in our hearts. Lord, we love you, and I just ask that you would just continue to guide and direct us as we go today. In your son's name I pray, amen.
Amen.